All right, so today we are going to take a closer look at the actual gameplay of Spiritfire, look at the mechanisms, and talk about the different components of the game. Here we have laid out on the table the two principal elements of the Spiritfire system. Up here is everything pertaining to the realm that you are visiting with your character. You have the realm box, the quests and encounters from that realm, and then the realm map. Everything down here is your personal character space. Every time you play, you will use everything that is down here. All of this changes depending on what realm you are visiting.
Yeah, so everything down here lives in your character box, and this is you. You're going to be developing it over time as you jump from realm to realm, theoretically. And then up here is kind of the module that you can plug in or plug out whenever you want to. So this is who I am, and this is where I am.
Let's go through who you am, maybe starting on that side and just work over towards me.
All right, so who I am. So yeah, the large neoprene mat here creates a tableau to keep everything together so I can stay organized. I've got a display box here that makes it really easy to set up and tear down. It has dividers in it for my disciplines, my conduits, my quirks, the things like that. We'll go over those in detail, but this is just easy access for everything that I need to get into. These top two slots I've got designated. This is kind of a flexible area. I can kind of design it how I want to when I play, but I like to put my two conduits up here. Conduits are connections to the world around you, and you will have two of those active at a time. One of them will be some type of a companion, and one of them will be either an object or an environmental thing or an abstraction. These are basically Spiritfire connections, and so
they grant you access to different abilities or sort of like asymmetrical powers that change the way that your character confronts the world.
Yeah, and sometimes they have keywords on them too, which will allow you to get through content gates, which is really cool. So sometimes if you can't get into a place, you just equip another conduit, and then if you have that Spiritfire burning inside of you, then this conduit would be active. This one takes 2 intensity for that to be active, and then this one takes 1 awe for it to be active. So this is the area where the conduits go. This is my discipline deck. I will be doing almost everything in the game based on this 30 card deck. There are a few things that add to that 30 card total, but this is where it goes. This is kind of the discard pile area. And then over here, I've got an area for personal quests, which I think we're going to tackle separately, but that's kind of the card tableau there. This area here is my capacity. So this is kind of like my mental capacity, or how much I can handle at one time. So as I play my discipline cards, they're going to go into these stacks, these 2 columns in this capacity. And we'll go into detail into that in a moment when we go through a challenge, and so you'll be able to see exactly how that works. But as this capacity starts to fill, I need to clear my mind and to basically make sure that I'm not taking on too much at one time.
Over here we have our dashboard. Ours right now is literally cut out by hand.
Janky.
Looks kind of like we did it with garden shears. In this area we have our Spiritfire. Up here are sort of null or not active Spiritfire. The supply. But as you gain Spiritfire down here into your burning area, this is where you have Spiritfire burning inside you.
Active.
Yeah. There are 4 different aspects of Spiritfire. We have awe, illumination, transmutation, and intensity. Over here we have our resolve wheel. This wheel does a number of things, but on a most basic sort of introductory understanding of it, the best way to think about it is that there are these 4 principal actions that are governed by your resolve, and when you take these actions, you take them to the extent that your resolve currently is toward that action. So you have an action to push, which is to move, to clear, to remove cards from your capacity, to focus, which is to draw cards, and to ignite, which is to gain Spiritfire. And how good you are, or how much you can do each of those actions changes over the course of the game as these marbles move around and events in the game affect where your headspace is at and what you're capable of.
Right. So if I wanted to draw cards and my focus is currently set to 2, I would draw 2 cards when I focus. But later in the game, I might increase my resolve to focus. And as I become more focused, now when I take an action to draw cards, I'm drawing 4 cards. But it takes effort to get up those tracks.
And that's something that one of the things that we're trying to explore with this element of the game is that you don't just ratchet yourself up. That's not the experience of life. Things ebb and flow, and in one moment you are more capable of an action than in another moment. So you may at some point drive up your focus resolve to where every time you focus, you're drawing 4 cards. But then something might happen in the game that decreases your focus, and now you're only drawing 2. And so these are moving around and changing over the course of the game. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. This here is your flicker pad. Flicker is this game's experience system. You gain flicker in lines of different shapes and orientations that you draw on this pad. This is the only instance in the game where you're drawing on anything. It's not drawing on cards. It's a pad of paper. There are also dry erase pads if you prefer. And you will be applying the flicker that you gain to this pad in an effort to make shapes that match the shapes on cards that you are pursuing to add to your different decks. So these are the cards that you have in your potential. You can unlock new disciplines to go into your deck, or unlock new Spark of Life to go in your Spark deck. There are other things that you can apply your flicker to, like overcoming burdens and things like that. And then over here on this side, we have the Spark of Life deck. Spark is sort of the representation of your internal spark and what you have to give in life. And as you are doing things in the game, you are spending this spark when you encounter things or when you attempt activities. And as time goes on, you will start diminishing your spark, and you get to have this really interesting sort of representation of, at a certain point you cross this threshold to where there's more spark behind you than ahead of you.
Then when you run out...
Yeah, and then when spark runs out, you have... that character has completed their journey, and you enter an end game phase where there are some final things that happen. Over the course of the game, there are ways to rekindle your spark and gain spark back. So, if you're midway through the game, and you take different actions to fill yourself back up, you can prolong your life and be able to do more with your time because you were mindful enough to fill yourself back up and not just spend yourself constantly.
When you start the game, you're going to start with a deck of basic spark, and what these do is they basically allow you to add a particular type of spirit fire to your pool. But the ones that you unlock through the game that come out of packs and other things are advanced spark, and they actually have special abilities. So perhaps this card came out and it's a special one and it's better than the other basic spark. When you rekindle, you'll be able to dig through this deck and pull out the ones that you want to. And so over time, what you're basically doing is stacking the remaining deck. And so there's some strategy involved there.
Yeah, there's a deck building aspect to this for sure.
So towards the end of the game, what you're going to find is you're not going to be able to rekindle as much as you're expending in the game. So eventually your Spark of Life is going to run out. At that moment, when it runs out, it will trigger kind of this end game scenario where your character is going to go through some resolution of their story arc. We've kind of got that set up as like a mystery box that you're going to open up, and it's going to take you through some mystery things. But at the end of that, your character is going to be able to carry down some of the wisdom that they've gleaned in their lifetime to the next character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the goal of the game ostensibly is seeing how much wisdom you can attain over the course of that character's playthrough. And then you will use that wisdom to pass things down to the characters that follow. And what you'll find is then when you make another character to re-engage with the world, that character creation process and the options available to that character are changed and tweaked and evolved based on the wisdom that was passed down from previous characters. So new game plus, more or less, is adjusted and tweaked and personalized and expanded in ways that we don't want to spoil. But a big part of what we are leaning towards being special about this game is that completing a character has its own really satisfying conclusion, like Marc said, to their arc, but that it sets up something really neat and potent and interesting to make the next playthrough even more exciting.
Yeah, the next character that you roll up is going to have the benefit of what's passed down from the previous character. So it is kind of a character plus or a boosted starting point. However, I would also note that you don't necessarily want to try to charge through or speed through your first character so that you can start the game again with a boosted character, because the boost that you get is based on how much you've done with the first character, so it'd almost be counterproductive to do that. This game really rewards playing to the edges and seeing how much you could do.
Yeah, we're trying to sort of go against the kind of gamer mindset of, like, my job is to destroy this game and just crush it as quickly or as much as I can. And elements like this, take the time to do activities that rekindle your spark, are designed to kind of slow you down and ask you to engage with it from a kind of different perspective. All right, let's talk about the realm area. I'm just going to scoot this out of the way so that camera has a clear shot. So over here we have our map. The map in each realm is composed of these cards. In this one, you started up here and we've worked our way down, so you're sort of seeing something that's kind of part way through this first realm. This area of the game is still in the tutorial, so there are going to be some really, really, really minor spoilers in this video, but I would discourage you from turning it off because it was spoilers. We're talking about the first 10 minutes of the game and areas that are still very much the tutorial. But the way the map works is you started up here and these cards were face down. As you can see, these ones here are still face down, but you can make some things out. And part of the design intention here is we like to be able to have your curiosity be something that's really driving you and compelling you forward in this game. And so even now, when you don't know what's over here, you can make out landmarks like you might be able to see from a distance. You can see that there's this ravine. You can infer that it might be hard to get across. You can see that there are these interesting sort of larger things happening over here that you might want to investigate. And we really like this in open world video games like Breath of the Wild or Elden Ring or something, where you just see something and you want to go there and check it out. And you might be going this direction to do a quest, but then you get distracted and you come over this way and go down a rabbit hole, and then 20 minutes later you say, wait, hold on, I was doing this thing over here. And you just start having this experience where you really feel like you're living in the space instead of just going through these, tasks lists that the game designers have given you. So this is your map, this is your player piece. As you move into the areas, they are revealed. Let's talk a little bit about some of these icons that we're seeing. On these nodes, you see these little circle and diamond icons. These represent areas where you might have encounters. Over here on this map, we have these 3 different encounter decks. Right now, it's an encounter card. But normally this would be a thick stack of encounters. Every time you enter a node that has one of these icons, there's a chance that you will encounter one of these cards. Having them in these 3 decks lets us make different areas in the realm that behave differently. So, an example we like to use is if you have a forest that's really dangerous, you might have those areas all be diamonds, and then when you're in that area, you're triggering these really dangerous encounters. But once you're out of there and you're in town or whatnot, you're drawing from the town encounters that are safer and are have a whole different tone and vibe. And this modular nature of encounters lets us give the realm lots of personality that can evolve. So if you do something that, say, changes a friendly environment into a hostile environment, one of the packs of cards from the realm box may insert a whole bunch of new encounters into that encounter deck, and now the village that was friendly to you is now suddenly full of really hostile encounters, as an example. So yeah, over here you have your 3 encounter decks, or in this case, 2 cards and 1 empty one. Don't worry about it. This is actually an older prototype mat. The newer one is wider, so this box, it would still be on the mat, but it would be off to the side here, which leaves room here for a row of quests. These are your active quests in the realm. So right now in this realm, we have a quest that just says, reach the Eternal Library. That's the name of the quest. And then the condition to complete the quest, coincidentally, is also reach the node titled the Eternal Library. When we started, we were up here and these 2 cards were face down. And we know that we're trying to reach the Eternal Library. We don't know where that is, but we can look at the art on this card, and this won't always be true, but it was true in this case. And we can see that there is this location down here that bears some resemblance in architecture to this card. And so while we don't know for certain that this is the library that's being referenced here, we can certainly infer it.
Follow our instincts.
And we started moving our way down, and lo and behold, when we got down here and revealed this card, it is in fact the Eternal Library. So when we move down to this location, we will have completed that quest, we will have completed the first half of this quest, at least this front side, and we will flip it over and resolve whatever's on the back. Here is your milestone area. As you complete encounters and quests in the realm, some of them will have these glyph symbols in the corner that get added to this milestone track.
And this is true of every realm. Mm-hmm. So it might not just be this particular rune symbol. It might be any number of icons as part of an iconography for that realm. And those icons are going to also either gate content or create opportunities for some content.
What happens here using these milestones is so incredibly varied from realm to realm and from quest to quest. And this really is kind of the lifeblood of your relationship with the realm. The best way to talk about it, I think, is to just start rattling off examples. So let's say, for example, you're in a realm that has 2 people groups, and those people groups are in conflict with each other. And every time you help one of those groups, a new icon hits your milestones. And at a certain point, Group B won't interact with you anymore because you have too many of these Group A icons here. And so their quests become something that you can't do. Another example might be if you are trying to discover clues to the whereabouts of something. Your quest might say, oh, you need 4 clue icons here.
Yeah, or maybe there's just a big sealed cave door with runes on it, and you go in front of that cave door and you realize that you cannot go through it because you don't understand the runes. And maybe after you have 3 or 4 of these rune icons, which means you've encountered and kind of spent time processing those runes, by the time you've done that 4 times, you now understand enough to enter that cave door.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you might be trying to prevent things from going onto the track here. So you may be having encounters that say, the creatures attack the village, scare them away, or they damage the village, and that damage is represented by an icon on the milestone track. And if you ever have 5 damages, you open a pack and out of that pack comes, oh no, new map cards that represent that the village is now on fire and the fire is spreading, or what have you. As you're going through the realm, this key will tell you what the different icons mean. So right now in tutorial mode, you have this one icon. It's very simple. But over time, this will grow and expand, and your relationship to the realm will have a whole bunch of different layers of things that are happening. But there are so many of these that we could probably give 30 examples and not be getting redundant with the types of things that we're doing with the milestones.
The system here with the iconography allows a lot of agency for the player to make determinations about how they want to proceed with the various story arcs and not just be dictated a set storyline. Basically, these are the effects that you've had in the realm, and sometimes they're permanent. Sometimes it says, okay, well, once there's 4 of those, like you said, maybe there's now a bridge over this ravine and allows you to cross. Or maybe later on there's another thing that you do. It's like, okay, well, that bridge is burned down now, and so you got to flip that card over. And so the environment changes, and the non-player characters and the creatures and stuff also will treat you differently based on what you've done in the world.
Yeah, and and sometimes things will be recontextualized. Most of these things right now just are things that we're just making up as examples. So don't worry that we're in spoiler mode, or if some of them seem not thought out, because they're not thought out. We're just throwing stuff out there. But let's say you're being exposed to some sort of, I don't know, powder or toxin in the environment, and that is representing some sort of negative effect that's happening. But then later in the game, you may open a pack of cards where something happens where you gain a benefit for that exposure, or you need to find some way to twist and use the things that are in your milestone tracks in a way that is slightly different than their context has been thus far in the realm or in the story. So each realm has 9 packs of cards. So the amount of quests and encounters and changing, evolving map is extensive. And
it actually has a blister pack too that you start with.
Yeah,
which is
that like
40 some
the realm.
cards that just kind of seeds the realm
and starts you with a stack of quests of things you can do. And it is open world. So, in the example we're going to go through from the tutorial, you're going to see things that are fairly linear, but during the normal full game, you would have a handful of things over here that you could be doing at any given moment, and they're just available to you. You don't have to do things in a set order all the time. You can choose to ignore this thing forever and do these other things. It's totally up to you. I feel like now we know, here's your realm space and vaguely what's going on up here, and here's your personal space. Let's get into some of the actual mechanics of what is going on.
Yeah, how do we do anything?
In the story, we are trying to reach the Eternal Library. That's the only quest that the tutorial has given us. So we know that the Eternal Library is down here, so we wish to move from here to here. Mark, how would one do that?
So your discipline deck consists of 30 cards, 30 discipline cards, and there are a couple of card types that you will add to that total. And those are burden cards. If you ever gain or have any burdens, they are required to be shuffled into your discipline deck, and they just pop out and they do things. As you move on, you can repress them, you can keep them at bay for a while, but there are also some things you can do in your pursuits to overcome them permanently. So burdens will also be in your discipline deck. Also, your conduits, or the connections with the world, give you these powers, but they also have quirks that come with them, and so that little personality things that will happen that will kind of either come at the awkward time because you've drawn it and you weren't really expecting that to happen, but sometimes they're also kind of endearing. And so that makes up your discipline deck. So it's almost completely disciplines, but it also has quirks and burdens in it.
Yeah, the quirks represent your conduit doing something that you don't control, because this is a thing that's outside your agency. So you may have this connection to this glowing twig that through which you have this access to this, spirit fire ability. But maybe the glowing twig shocks you every once in a while. And that is something that would come out as a quirk when you're drawing through your deck.
Okay, so there are no turns in Spiritfire. You basically just continue to go as long as you can. And when your capacity is full or your deck has been depleted, you must rest. I'm going to go ahead and just show you how to do the 4 actions. And one of them, right now, it sounds like we just want to go down to the Eternal Library. It's just 1 node away. After you rest, you will draw 4 discipline cards, and they look like this. I will kind of lay a couple of them, put a couple of them on screen. All you're doing is you're playing one of the cards into your capacity. So there's 2 vertical columns here. There's the left stack and the right stack. It doesn't really matter at this point. We'll get into the strategy later, but I'm going to go ahead and play this card here. There's 2 things that happen when you play a card into your capacity, and you can do them in any order that you would prefer. The first one is there's a burning ability that you can qualify for if you meet the requirement. Right now we have 3 Spiritfire burning, a symbol in the upper left that just says any Spiritfire must be burning, and so we can use this ability which says gain 1 Spiritfire that I don't already have. So currently I do not have Illumination. I could put that into my pool. So that's the burning ability. The second thing that happens is it triggers my resolve. So I can do any one of these 4 actions to the level at which the marble is at. They are focus, which is draw cards, ignite, which is roll Spiritfire dice into my pool, push, which means either move on the map or move in a challenge, or clear cards out of my capacity to make room to continue. So right now I've already done the burning ability, which I gained Illumination, which I didn't have, but I'm also wanting to push. My current push is 1, so then I could just move 1 space.
Awesome. Can I add to this with my cute little demonstration?
Do it.
So one of the ways that I like teaching the discipline cards is with these cards, there's no cost to play them. To play a discipline card, you literally just play it. Using a discipline allows you to take one of these 4 actions. Doesn't matter, you don't have to qualify for anything. You play a discipline, you take one of these 4 actions: clear, focus, ignite, or push. So theoretically, you could just ignore the faces of the cards and just, okay, I'm gonna clear, I'm gonna push, I'm gonna ignite, and just use them just as a discipline to take your resolve actions. So that's 1/2 of what the card does. The other half of what it does is if you have the requisite Spiritfire burning, you may also do its burning ability. So those are 2 independent things that the card does, but you get both of them, and that's my cute little demo.
That's how that works. For another example, let's say I didn't have Awe in my pool, and I played this card next in this stack. I would be able to trigger my resolve because every card does that. So I could do one of those 4 actions. Let's say I chose to focus. I'm going to draw 2 more cards because my focus is currently at 2. And then I wanted to do my burning ability. Well, I could see that I don't have Awe burning, so I can't do that ability. So it's a prerequisite. So I have to have both of those burning to do this card. Had I played this card instead, I do have Transmutation burning, and this is any other Spiritfire, so this one I would qualify for.
All right, so Marc has used this discipline to push down, and he's reached the Eternal Library. That is the condition required to complete this quest. So he has achieved reaching the Eternal Library, and he flips this over. On the back, we see a bit of narrative here, and then there's a resolution that comes from this quest. I'll just read this. The scale and grandeur of the library surpasses anything I've seen or imagined. I get the sense it has stood unworn for thousands of years and will do so for thousands more. If ever a building gave the impression of being eternal, it is this. Flare flares encouragingly. I continue forward, entering the library. Flare is your little buddy that you will have met at this point in the story. Then at the bottom here, it says, immediately open the pack a new light and add this to my completed quests. So this goes into completed. All right, you open this pack. So each of these packs, they're made with this nice thick paper. They have the table of contents of everything that's in that pack. So if you wanted, you could reload these and reset your game. That is not the expected behavior. When you complete this character's arc, the cards continue to be part of your collection that passes down to the next player. Your collection continues to be viable in ways that we'll get into another time. But if you wanted to reset, you could, is what I'm getting at in a long-winded way. So you open this pack, and the first thing you encounter is the next piece of the story. As I enter the library, a sense of reverence stirs within me. The scale is immense, ceilings towering so high they're like a private hidden sky. Filling the hall are row upon row of stone monuments, all etched deeply with a runic language I have never seen, but that feels strangely familiar. I know without knowing, in the way of instinct, that this place contains knowledge that exceeds the chronicling of history, that surpasses even the very concept of knowledge as we think of it. Stored in these halls are secrets of the very fabric of things. The stones glow with a soft, almost imperceptible ebb, as though dormant or asleep. A single stone monument floats nearer the entrance than the others, hovering a span off the ground. I inspect it briefly and then attempt to step further into the hall to inspect others, but find that I cannot. An invisible field of energy prevents me from moving deeper, as though the air is too dense to pass through. I return my attention to the monument at the entrance. Instruction, I sense from Flare. Gatekeeper. I begin to understand. Whatever I need to do to access the library, this monument holds the key. Or is the key. Or wants a key. Whatever the case, the thing burning inside me tells me that I need to go deeper. I've always sensed that there was something more to life, and I can sense the understanding I seek is held within these halls. If I hope to proceed, I need to be able to comprehend the language covering the Gatekeeper monument. I need to see more of it in different contexts to perhaps begin to interpret it. Then, in the same unsettling manner as before, which is referring to part of the story that you didn't hear, an impression of 4 stone statues standing sentinel in the jungle appears in my mind. Guidance, Flare impresses. Connection. I recognize these statues from the road to the library. I sense, either from Flare or from some sort of innate sensing, that these stone sentinels have a secret to share, but only to those with a truly lit spirit. A second location appears in my mind as well. This one is less clear. Guidance, Flare presses again. A clear mind, she continues. Receive. I sense this location to the northeast. I will seek these and other opportunities in the ruins throughout the jungle to study the language and gain the understanding I need to read the Gatekeeper Stone. And then, one more thing. A barely tangible impression at the edge of thought, like a dream half remembered. An ancient city. Where this is, I cannot tell, but I sense that something or someone is there, waiting for me. And then it says, add access the Eternal Library, learn the Sentinel's secret, seek promised guidance, and find City of Remembrance to the active quest deck, and place the 2 encounters into their stacks, and add these story cards to the realm story. So the first thing that happens from that is these story cards go behind a divider that houses all the story cards you've unlocked in the realm. So at any point, you can go and read through the stories you've experienced so far, which in an open world game is going to be different for each player, and nice to be able to refer to if you've left this realm and gone and spent some time in another one and then you come back. And then we have these encounters that are now coming out because of the interaction that we've had. And then now we have a new stack of quests. So this first one is access the Eternal Library, which we are trying to do. We're trying to get past that stone, and we need to have 3 of these rune symbols, or these glyph symbols, which we can see on our little key here, represent exposure to the glyph language. So in order to get into the library, we need to go add these symbols to our milestone track to represent that we've had more exposure and understanding of that ancient language. Then we have learn the Sentinel's secret, which says have at least 5 spirit fire burning while at the mysterious stone sentinels, which is a location we are aware of. We passed it on the way down here, so that is a quest that we know how to pursue. Then we have pursue promised guidance, which says be at the upside down waterfall with both stacks empty. So that's sort of the condition of doing this quest or attempting this quest. We don't actually know where the upside down waterfall is, but we can picture it because we saw it in the vision, and we might be able to search the environment and infer a direction we might want to go to seek that one. And then we have this quest to find this city that we sort of saw, but we have no idea where that is. And then there's this additional encounter. So now we have completed that quest, and it has resulted in a whole bunch of new things to do, and we are just now back to the map and free to do whatever we want to do next. All right, so we are now just thrust back out into the world to do whatever we want, and we can do whatever we want. So you could pursue these quests, or you could just explore. You know, we have this road that leads this way, so if you wanted to, you could just wander and start discovering things and seeing what happens. But I think, for the sake of example, most players knowing that they have a quest that needs to be completed here, and that quest also pertains to completing other quests, would probably head this direction. So Mark, why don't you take it away?
Since I need to move, I'm gonna try to use the push action. My push is set to 1 currently. Theoretically, I could push for 2 if I had that track set higher, but since it's only 1, I'm gonna go back to the Crackling Ruins here. So I can play any one of my cards to do that. I'm just over here, I'm going to play Productivity. So the first thing I'm going to do this time is I'm going to trigger my Resolve, which is to push for 1. And that will move me here. That's going to trigger an encounter. But before I trigger the encounter, I'm going to go ahead and use this burning ability because I qualify for it. So I'm going to draw 1, take a card, and I'm also going to gain a flicker. And looking at my pursuits over here, just for the sake of this example, I'm going to try to unlock the Spark of Fleeting Genius. So I'm going to try to make sure that whatever line I make, horizontal line, I'm going to just put that right there.
What's great about that is that actually contributes to any of these. They all have a line in that area. So, so if you wanted to change direction on that one later, you could.
So I've completed both of my card play actions, and now I can see that there's a diamond here.
So anytime you move onto one of these nodes that has one of these encounter symbols, that means there's a potential for you to have an encounter there. To check if you have an encounter, you burn a Spark of Life, and the first thing you do is resolve whatever that spark card does. This one is a basic one that just gains intensity. So you have gone to this spiritually potent area and gained some intensity spirit fire. And then you check the top of the card, and here you see these 2 little die pips. And if you have that many or more spirit fire burning in your pool, then you have triggered an encounter. So in this case, Mark has moved on to this diamond area. Diamonds, which in this realm represent locations that are ancient crumbling ruins. And he has triggered an encounter, so he would draw a encounter card.
I find myself standing in front of a crumbling stone platform covered in glyphs. Small creatures filled with spirit fire paint the same glyphs in the air with light. Curious. Okay, then I have a couple of options here. I can either trace the painted lights, which would take me to page 33 in the book and would call on my awe, or I can scrutinize the platform and turn to page 17. However, the encounter instructs me further. When complete, if I've gained flicker from 2 different nodes in the challenge, I can add this to my milestone track, which would give me that rune icon, which would contribute towards access the Eternal Library. Otherwise, I can add this to my completed quests, and it would not go into my milestone track.
Yeah, and let's talk about this for just a second more. You have these 2 options on the right, which right now in tutorial mode is basically just a narrative choice. Which of these 2 things do you want to do that just sounds more fun? And oftentimes in the game, that may be the thing that motivates you. But as you're playing the game more, there are a couple other things that are going to factor into this decision. This is more of an awe-based action or response, and this is more of a transmutation-based response. And whatever challenge spread in the book this is taking you to is going to lean more heavily into this aspect of Spirit Fire or cards that have abilities that use this aspect. And so if you know that your current deck build leans really heavily on Awe, then you know, okay, I'm going to be better equipped to do well with this response than I am this one.
Or you could also say, I'm actually kind of weak, but I want to get stronger. And so sometimes making the other choice is appropriate.
Another factor is that a lot of your personal quests will care about how you approach things. So we don't have any out right now, but over here you would have a stack of personal quests similar to these realm quests. But personal quests are quests that can be pursued in any realm and that travel with you. And often these will require or ask you to engage with the world in certain ways because you're trying to grow something in yourself. So if you have a personal quest where you are trying to connect, let's say, to the ancient wind that blows through all lands, and it will give you some greater understanding and access to new disciplines, that quest may ask you to handle things that you encounter using your awe. And so by choosing the awe option here, you are pursuing this encounter, but you are also, through the way you're handling it, pursuing your personal quest.
Yeah, and that does tie into the aspects of Spirit Fire again, so I think we should just go over that briefly. So illumination represents mental mastery, the light of understanding, clarity, those types of things. Transmutation is like mutation and conversion and transformation and those types of things. Intensity tends to be a little bit more things in the physical realm. It's like power and vigor and resistance and those types of things. And then awe is like the inexplicable and wondrous and miraculous types of things, bending rules and stuff like that. So as you're making choices in the game, Spirit Fire is kind of like the magical energy in the game. These are the things that are going to basically tell you what you're unlocking in yourself and how you need to prepare for these types of encounters and quests and those so forth. And you're actually kind of learning to attune yourself to these four aspects of Spirit Fire to get through certain scenarios. And so what you might find is there's a very challenging quest that comes later that requires you to really thoroughly revise your deck so that it's primarily awe and transmutation. And so maybe you take out a bunch of the intensity cards and maybe you take out a bunch of the illumination cards so that you can perform well in that challenge.
In this case, we are trying to get this symbol here added to our milestones to represent that we've learned something about this ancient language. So whichever of these two options we pursue, this area tells us here that if we gain flicker 2 times from that challenge, we will have understood the language more and we gain this milestone. This area here, this black text that gives you these different sort of objectives and things like that, is radically different on every encounter. So sometimes the 2 different options will have a different outcome. Sometimes they will have a different variable that they apply to the challenge that you're going to. Other times they will share a variable or share a goal, like they do in this case. So these and how they interact with what happens next is very varied. Many of the activities, encounters, or quests you attempt or face will take you to the game's spiral-bound book. And in it are dozens and dozens of challenges designed to represent everything you might try to do in the world, actions you might take, activities you might get involved with, but without falling back on some variation of the classic like role-playing skill or attribute check. These challenges create a thematically structured platform for you to play your cards against that are built to represent the type of action that you're taking. Skill checks always feel the same, and we wanted the type of activity you're performing to feel like that type of activity. So, like, random example, if you are negotiating, the negotiation spread has mechanisms that resemble a sort of tug-of-war dynamic. And then the quest card customizes that challenge even further so that it behaves appropriately for the person you're negotiating against. And there are dozens and dozens of these, and each feels dramatically different. Some are these like intense crucibles, and some are laid back and relaxed and just full of rewards. And the variety is huge, but more importantly, they create a feeling that matches what you're actually doing narratively, which was the ultimate goal.
We've chosen to scrutinize the platform off of the encounter card, which has led us to page 17 in the book. So this is a playtest challenge spread that we're using right now, which is representing page 17 in the book. I know that I can get this rune icon to put in my Milestones track, which is going to help me access the Eternal Library if I'm able to gain flicker from 2 nodes. And in this particular challenge spread, there's only 2 nodes that have flicker on them. So I need to somehow glean that flicker from both of those 2 nodes. So that's my objective right now. There's an activity over here for me to move my ring through, this kind of puzzle mini game. And there are also some prerequisites for playing cards in these stacks, or some effects that are going to happen when I play cards in these 2 stacks of my capacity. The left one says, if I end my movement on a different shape, ignite 1. So there are 4 shapes in this particular puzzle. There's a green one here, a purple one here, a blue triangle here, and kind of an oval shape here for the orange. And so when I play a card here, I would roll a Spirit Fire into my pool if I ended in a different shape. And then the right stack says I may not end my movement on a node that touches a different shape. So I'm starting here, I've got these arrows kind of directing me which direction I have to go. And so I for example, cannot end my movement here because it touches both the green shape and the purple shape. So I'm going to do what I always do, which is basically just kind of start to use my resolve actions. I'd like to demonstrate the order in which things would happen. So I am going to play into the right stack. The first thing that happens is I make a note. I may not end my movement on a node that touches a different shape. Okay, so I can go here, but I would not be able to end my movement here because it touches this triangular shape. And so, noted. Okay, so I'm going to go to my resolve, and I can either draw cards, I can roll Spirit Fire into my pool, which I don't really need to because I have quite a variety in there right now. I can push or move, and then I can also clear cards out of my capacity. So right now it's pretty easy to see that I just need to push. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward here, equal to my resolve, which is 1 for push. So I'm going to move 1 space. I landed on a node that says I may focus if I have awe burning. So I do have awe burning, so I'm going to go ahead and focus, which means draw 2 cards, or draw cards equal to that track. So I get to draw 2 cards. I drew a burden. So I was going to say I was done with that action, but I'm not. So as soon as you draw a burden card, it'll tell you right on it, play this card into your capacity. You don't have to follow the stack headers, but basically this one says immediately discard a discipline and exhaust 1 Spirit Fire. So I have to get rid of one of these. Okay, so I just discarded a card and I have to exhaust one of my Spirit Fire. I'm just going to go ahead and exhaust the intensity. So my Spirit Fire went down, and these are going to continue to haunt me as I continue to play the game. They will just come up in my deck however they come out when I draw cards, until I find a way in the game to overcome my burdens. Right now I've got this goal. I want to try to figure out how to get up here and get that particular flicker. And so right now I've only got 2 cards in hand. My stacks are doing okay. I'm going to go ahead and play Craft Solutions into the left stack. Left stack means if I end my movement on a different shape, ignite 1. Okay, so I'm gonna, and then if I have these burning, which I do, I have illumination and awe, so I may also increase my focus resolve by 1. So now every time I focus, I get to draw 3 cards instead of 2. So that's useful. So that's my burning effect. I still get to do one of my resolve abilities, and I want to continue pushing, but I've only got 1 card in hand, and I just increased my focus. So I think I'm going to focus for my resolve action, and I'm going to draw 3 cards. And I drew a quirk. Okay, so one of Slarg's abilities just happened, And this happens immediately. And it says, clear up to 3. If a burden is cleared in this way, I may focus. Okay, so that's great, actually. So I get 3 cards wiped out of my capacity, and if I do a burden, I also get to draw more cards. So I'm going to go ahead and move both of these cards out and the burden card, and it's going to allow me focus to draw 3 more cards, which is a nice little engine I have going. So actually things are going fairly well right now. Okay, so that is completely resolved. Now I still want to kind of try to get through this puzzle, and I can see that based on the arrows, I can't do both of these. I'm going to have to go all the way around again. So I want to increase my push. Do I have a way to increase my push? Not yet. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and in this left stack, I'm going to play away my options. Again, if I end my movement on a different shape, ignite 1. So I am going to go ahead and push this time. So I'm going to move 1 space. If I have blue burning, I have to use a spark. So I do have blue burning. That's going to cause me to use a spark. Spark card comes out. It adds awe to my pool, but that actually just drained one of my spark of life. So I don't really necessarily want that to happen a lot, but that's just where it worked out this time. I can also reflect 1 because I have illumination. Again, every time I play a card, there's a resolve action and then there's a burning effect. And so I get to reflect 1. Reflect means I can take a card from my discard pile and put it back into the bottom of my deck. And so, you know, I could take any one I want, but I'm just going to say I'm going to take this one. It goes in the bottom of my deck. So now I know it's there. It extends my day a little bit just because I'm going to be able to have a few more cards in here, so it might actually help me overcome some things later on. Okay, so I'm still trying to go through here. I definitely want to start pushing, so let's do that. I've got all 4 burning in my pool, so anything I do is going to be great. I am going to behold the heavens right now, which is going to allow me to draw on my flicker pad. Okay, so this is getting a little tricky, but I'm going to have to push 1 at a time here. Let's go ahead and pique curiosity. If I end in a different shape, I am in the triangle. I'm going to go up into the triangle. I'm going to use my push ability. So I'm going to go up 1. I don't have to ignite because I'm in the same shape. However, I do have intensity burning on that node, so it's going to allow me to clear. So my clear is set to 2 right now. I'm going to go ahead and take 2 of these cards out of my capacity, clearing my mind, which is actually really useful. I want to continue around here. So, gosh, I think I'm going to play Remember Your Roots. And I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push again. Boy, I want my push to go up. I don't really want to discard right now. I think first thing I'm going to do is the burning ability. So roll Spirit Fire equal to the number of awe in the stack. So right now it's at 1, but if I had 5 cards out here and I had like 6 icons, I could draw 6 cards, which is a like tremendous combo ability. Right now I've only got 1, so if I'd been more prepared, I probably could have set that up a little bit better. I've got another card in my hand that has that, but right now I'm just going to draw a card. And I think I'm ready for the next one. So I definitely want to continue pushing. I'm going to have to keep focusing as well. My focus is fairly high. Okay, so let's do this. So I'm going to untether imagination, and I want to focus. So I'm not even going to push. I'm just going to focus. My focus is set to 3. I'm going to draw 3 more cards. Okay, all disciplines. That's good. Now that gives me a little bit of bandwidth here to see if I can increase my push. I got one. So try and try again. This actually allows me to increase my push resolve, so it actually move my marble. So, and I do qualify because I have intensity and transmutation. So I'm going to play that in this space. I'm actually going to move the marble as the burning effect. And now for my resolve effect, I can push 2 instead of 1 because it's set to 2. So I can skip the discard and go straight over to the flicker area. I have it available, so I actually get to draw in my flicker pad that shape, right here, and that meets half of the criteria of this card. So I have to somehow now navigate myself all the way around here to get back and get that one. So that's the goal for me to unlock this icon on that card. So I ended in a different shape and I played in this, so I do need to ignite. So I'm going to add blue to my, boy, I'm getting really close. So if I ever get 3 of a kind in my Spirit Fire, combustion occurs and they all go away. And so I'm getting really close to that point, but right now I don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to go ahead and play my 5th card into the left stack, and it allows me to do 2 resolve actions. This says generate a second resolve action. It must be different from the first one. So my first resolve action I think is going to be to push for 2. So let's go ahead and push for 2. And that's going to allow me to increase my resolve again. And then my second action I think is going to be to clear. So I'm also going to clear for 2. So let's get rid of those 2 cards and free up some space here. Now I have to try to get through here, but you can see that there's a transmutation lock here. If I do not have a transmutation key, which I do happen to have, if I didn't have one, I would have to end the encounter at this point because I can't push back against the arrow and I can't get through the lock. So that would end the encounter, which is why it's really important to kind of prepare for some of these. But I do happen to have one. I didn't actually even stack the deck, believe it or not. But now as I push through here, I have to play the key to go through during that push action. So I'm going to go ahead and push. I'm going to push through here, and my push is 3. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. That's going to allow me to focus. My focus is 3. I'm going to draw 3 cards. I drew 3 disciplines. So I used the key. The other option on this card is I could have converted one of my Spirit Fire to a different type, but I chose to use the key because it was useful in the moment. And because I played in this stack, I do need to ignite because I ended in a different shape. So boy, we're getting close to combustion, and yeah, combustion just occurred because I have 3 of a kind in there. All of my Spirit Fire just went away. Too much energy. Okay. So now my goal at this point is to get up to this particular node with illumination in my pool, and at that point I will have met this criteria and feel pretty good, like I did a good job in this. However, we're not done yet. So I am going to play, I need to ignite is what I need to do. So I don't have anything in my burning effects that are going to allow me to ignite, but I will. Boy, I could focus. I don't want to run out of cards either. So if I over focus, it's going to hurt me. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to play Rhythmically Synchronize. I don't get the burning ability, but I am going to ignite. So it happens to be Illumination. That worked out. So now I just need to get up there. Now I am going to forego Conclusion, which allows me to convert this to a different type if I want to. I'm not going to, but I am going to push for my action, and my push is 3. 1, 2, 3, but I cannot end my movement in a node that touches a different shape, so I will not push. I can actually move 1, 2, or 3, even though my push is 3, but any of those situations takes me out of the green shape, so it's because I played in that stack. So I think instead I'm going to clear. So I'm going to take 2 cards out. My clear is set to 2. Clear those cards out. Now I can play in the left stack again, which is creating less of an impediment. All right, I'm going to play Based on Further Reflection. I do not get the burning ability because I don't have the requirement, which is 2 transmutation, but I am going to push. And so I'm going to push for 3. 1, 2, 3. First thing that's going to do is force me to discard. So I'm going to discard a card. And then the second thing is I have to ignite 1 because of the stack header. So now I have those 2. Now I've only got 1 card left. So if I don't focus, I'm not going to be able to continue. So I could push there and get that done. And theoretically, I could be done. If I did that, that would end the encounter. and maybe that's all I want to do, because I could continue to go around, and the more I get these bonuses, it's gonna remain with me. So like the fact that I've advanced my marbles is going to continue into the rest of my day. And I think maybe we'll just do that. So I'll just play this card. I don't get the burning effect, but it does allow me to push. I do have illumination in my pool. I do get to draw that shape. I'm going to go actually over the top of what I already had, and it makes a box here. And two things just happened. So number one, I can unlock this Spark of Fleeting Genius because I have replicated that shape. This card can just go straight and it'll be shuffled into this Spark of Light Depth. And I have met the requirements on this card, on the encounter, to gain Flicker from 2 different nodes. And so now this goes into my milestones and actually helps me, because I actually scrutinized the platform. I used my discernment. I played this mini game. And this has contributed to the success of me gaining, some momentum towards completing that quest. That is how a challenge works.
Hopefully this has helped reveal some of the mechanical flow of the game and some of what makes it all tie together and feel special. We are not the on-screen talent. We're the game designers, so forgive us and thank you for your grace for any clunkiness that this had. But hopefully it was valuable, and if you have any questions at all, we are very, very, very excited to share every detail of this game with you. We are excited to answer the questions, and we really want to expose any nuance of this that you are interested in. So please ask in the comments, either on YouTube or Kickstarter. And thank you for your interest in this game and for your enthusiasm and for your positivity. We're really, really glad you're here, and we'll talk to you soon.